Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the NF Show, Financial Flashpoints. I'm your host for this week, Evan Campbell, and with me, as always, is the ever-lovely Noah Ward.
Hello, everybody. So happy you're here, either watching the show or listening to it.
Yes, thank you once again for joining us, Noah. But hold on, he is not our only co-host for this week. Yes, once again, we have a triforce of co-hosts, which is always exciting here on the NF Show. We have special guest Brett Martin of the Video Game Memorabilia Museum.
Hello out there.
Thank you so much for joining us, Brett.
Yeah, no problem. It's going to be good.
And as you can see in the background, just a fraction of his incredibly awesome collection is there.
Yeah.
Yes, this is definitely one episode. If you're an audio-only listener, I strongly recommend you get over to the YouTube page for NF Show and check out Brett's awesome collection. It is only a fraction, but it's really cool to see in the background, and I'm sure he'll bring up a couple of his items as this show proceeds. So it's really exciting to have Brett here with us. But there's also a ton of Nintendo news to talk about. Nintendo's financials were revealed last week, and sadly they're sort of dire. We'll kind of jump into that topic discussion later in the show. And we also have another code giveaway for BitBoy Arcade, so you can look for our fun code break later in this episode. But first, before that, there's even more things to talk about. Noah's smiling because he's excited about it. I'm curious to find out if Brett's a Pokemon Mega fan, because new Pokemon games were announced right after the bad financial news. So this is Noah told me this is twice in 1 week. What have they done, Noah? They've released some bad information and then come out with something good?
Yeah, I feel like there's a little bit of PR strategy in the timing of Nintendo's announcements, because it's like, okay, so we're not going to have a press conference, but Mario Kart 8! And okay, we kind of had some bad financials, but Pokemon! And and sure enough, it works for some people out there. So mission accomplished somewhat.
And if for some reason you didn't hear the news, Pokemon Omega Ruby, Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, the remakes of the Game Boy Advance games are coming out this year for 3DS. Other than that, not much is known, but we can expect new Pokemon adventures or remakes of old Pokemon adventures, whatever you want to call it. They call it new adventures in the teaser trailer. So I'm sure there will be extra content, or just seeing those Pokemon in 3D will be really cool. But Brett, are you a big Pokemon fan? Is this something you're excited about?
I'm actually not. That's like the one Nintendo license that I actually avoided because of the merchandising. I kind of had to pick my ponies, if you know what I mean. So if you've seen other comparable collections in Pokemon, I mean, the Pokemon stuff could fill a room easily.
Yeah.
So
on its own.
I only have one room. So
That's really interesting.
Pokemon stuff, but yeah.
That's really interesting. Noah and I have talked about Pokemon. We're not the biggest fans. We gave Pokemon X and Y a try this past year, and we both really enjoyed it. But we've kind of looked at it from just the age separation. Like, I feel like I'm a couple years removed from when it really took off, because I was basically a teenager once Pokemon came out, and there was definitely kind of a stigma attached to it back then. That's
what little. You know, Evan, he's always
right there with you
cool.
as well. I liked the character designs, but it was definitely like a younger kids thing.
Yeah, and I feel like Nintendo's done a great job of that's kind of gone away as the years have gone on, and I don't feel like there's really that Pokemon stigma. But I mean, when it first came out, for sure, it's like that's on Game Boy. I'm playing 007 on Nintendo 64. I'm one of those kids, like, if you transported me through a time machine, I'd be the kid that's 13, be like, I only play Call of Duty and the Halos. Well, I'm not going to play those Animal Crossing games.
Baby games.
I'm sure I'd be an annoying 13-year-old if I today, just as I was back then. Well, it's really cool. Please let us know, audience, if you're excited about the Pokemon remakes. I still need to go back to Pokemon X. I'm like 15 hours in and finish that. I know Noah at one point you did. Did you finish Pokemon Y?
No, I have Pokemon X, and I did not finish it. I don't know. It strangely became repetitive, just like I feared that it would. But it was cool, and I was a little compulsive about collecting all of the coolest looking Pokemon, even though I had no idea what their elements were. And I had to cross-reference a chart to remember which was strong against what, and I never really got that down. But it was a fun little journey. I think I got a little bit over halfway through everything, and then I started playing Mario and Luigi, and then something else. That's always my biggest risk, is there's always something new, something shiny else to play. And sure enough, that's what happened with me. But
So there you have it. That's why we needed you, the audience, to tell us why you're excited about the remakes, what you're looking forward to these games, because basically out of us, it's 0 for 3, I think, on us picking up Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. But it's not because necessarily of disinterest or just not liking. It's more just not our cup of tea, apparently. But something that's probably right up Brett's alley, and I'm really excited he's here for us talking about this tidbit, is Nintendo teased the first NFC, and if you're curious, NFC stands for Near Field Communication, their first NFC figurine, not counting Pokemon Rumble U, and unsurprisingly, it was a Mario statue. And, no. And the company claimed that these aren't going to just work with one game, so it's not going to be something just like Skylanders. It looks like these figurines will work with multiple games, and from the teaser images, it seems like they may even work with past games that are already out on the Wii U. So what are your thoughts on Nintendo kind of joining the Skylanders game, Brett, and what did you think of the first statue that they showcased?
Oh, I'm not excited at all. No. Yeah, definitely very excited. I was in Skylanders, the Giants version. My kids and I were playing that one. And then I kind of held off on the other ones to do Disney Infinity, and I really liked that, but always felt that, man, if Nintendo can get involved with this, what would happen? And here we are, we're on the verge of a full announcement on this thing, maybe at E3. So, oh my gosh. I just hope that it's not insane on the level of super exclusive figures or something like that, where you can only get certain figures in certain areas and this kind of thing. But wouldn't it be great to just have a nice line of figures? Like, I'd be excited just for the figures, but to be able to play with them in the game is in multiple games is an exciting prospect, sure. And it's just really nice to think about having like a full range of Nintendo figures that all have the same scale and are all in a similar style.
Yeah, definitely. And Noah, I know you're someone that you didn't buy the Disney Infinity game, but you have picked up at least one of the figurines.
Yeah, I've got the game and everything.
You're right. I'm not surprised to hear that Brett went all in. It seems to be in his wheelhouse, these figurines. I actually have a decent collection of random capsule toys of Mario figurines because, well, I guess before we got into this NFC thing, there weren't a lot of examples or instances, at least available in America, of little figurines. That's definitely changed in recent years. I can actually find Mario figurines in a number of stores and so on and so forth, but they're all big. The Disney Infinity figurines are really, really well made. They're very well painted, very well sculpted. It's really impressive. And while I can't buy into the concept of the game, it really doesn't look like a game that I would enjoy. Those figurines really tap into my inner collector. Being nowhere, very amateur compared to Brett, of course. But so it's like, and I just feel like I'm like, I shouldn't be getting these $12 figurines that are meant for a game. But I couldn't help, and I went and got the Wreck-It Ralph one. So I do have one, and I'm not sure how these. Oh, thank you. I'm not sure how these Nintendo ones are going to go, but I have a feeling, depending on the poses and stuff like that, because if it's just Mario standing very generically, that's not really exciting from an aesthetic or artistic perspective. But if there's some really cool poses or something like that, I'll probably be getting them, even regardless of the games.
Do either of you have concerns with? I'm guessing they will, I would hope, be built for one specific game. But say they're not, and they're just built for past games and for future games going forward. Is there any concern from either of you that these could just be glorified memory cards and nothing like Skylanders, where you're leveling up those characters or anything?
I noticed in the PowerPoint slide that they had illustrating this, they showed one figurine being applicable to multiple games, and I didn't understand exactly what that's going to mean, and I'm so happy we don't have to wait long to find out what that is. I remember you, Evan, mentioning that you were concerned that these figurines may be requirements for multiple games, that several games will be coming out, and they won't be playable, or chunks of them won't be playable unless you get the requisite figurine. And that would kind of be a bummer. I'd prefer a more focused initiative or offering, kind of like Skylanders or Disney Infinity. But if they were glorified memory cards, I couldn't imagine Nintendo committing this much resource to it. I think they really want to make it big, and I have a feeling it'll be more than that. Now, if I have to purchase every figurine that represents a character in Smash in order to have Smash Brothers roster completely filled out, that will be very uncool. But who knows? Brett?
I think we're beyond that point for Smash Brothers. Just R&D wise, they would have mentioned that, I think, already. But in regards to going backwards for replay value of the games that are already out, that would be interesting, just to get us back into those games. So I really wouldn't have a problem with them going back and like patching an old game to add something for the NFC stuff. But like Evan said, going forward, if it's a requisite, it'll cause problems. If it's just for fun, like additional stuff, like Nintendo's known for, I think it'll be a huge success. And there'll probably just be like one game that has everything attached to it, and then like it'll branch to other games, or maybe they just added that to the patent to save themselves later on. But
yeah, you know, they could be going the Pokemon route, where they have a red edition and a blue edition and a green edition of the game, and that one figurine is can go to different worlds in each of those games or something like that.
Well, there's two theories that I want to throw out there that I've thought have been very intriguing before we move on. And one is, some people have tweeted us, and there may even be some feedback about these statues could come with VC games, and this could be the start of a new initiative of the virtual console that I think would be really cool. So you buy the Mario figure, you're going to at least get one virtual console game, and we haven't said it yet, but not only will these NFC figurines work with Wii U initially, but they will be planned to work with the 3DS come next year with a new kind of portal a la Skylanders or Disney Infinity. So that's one cool idea. And the second one, and this was proposed actually by Chris Kohler of Wired, he thought it'd be brilliant of Nintendo to release one game that utilizes the statue, since they work with multiple games, and just release a free download on the eShop, and then more of the game opens up with the more statues you buy. So I just thought that those were really smart ideas, especially trying to get interest back in the Wii U. That would get people interested in the statues, and especially if that game just downloaded like they did with Wii Sports Club on the Wii U. But we will find out more at E3, and we're, 28 days, 29 days away from Nintendo's press conference. It just keeps creeping up.
Yes. Who's counting now?
I am. I just wanted to be here. I can't wait.
Yeah, me too.
Are you going?
No, none of us are going. We'll be right here, actually. We'll have to figure out our NF show schedule.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be there.
Oh, you're going?
Fancy.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Cool.
So
maybe we can...
I'll join a Smash tournament.
That'll be awesome. We'll have to get you on to give us first-hand account, because I'm sure you're going to get your hand on some of those statues in those games and hear what you think, especially with your expertise.
Definitely.
So, speaking of that, Brett, let's get to know who you are. You obviously are part of the NF Magazine staff, but you started with the Video Game Memorabilia Museum. Your collection, we've just seen a fraction of it here on the show, looks amazing. What was your first experience with Nintendo? What got you started?
Well, I have to go all the way back to Atari, actually. The Mario Brothers cart on Atari and the Donkey Kong cart on Atari 2600. We had both of those, so that was my first Nintendo experience, whether I knew it was Nintendo or not. But really, it turned into something big when Super Mario Brothers 3 was played at my neighbor's house, and then all of a sudden I had to have one, and it took me a few years to convince my parents. But once I finally got it, it was all downhill from there, as they say.
And so you've been building on have you basically been collecting things since you were just a kid, or has this been more of a recent initiative in your adulthood?
Well, when I was around 8 years old, I got the Nintendo, and there was a few figures that were around at that time that you could purchase. They're little figures from Applause, and it was just this little Mario holding a mushroom, and there was a couple of other ones. And later on, when I was in college, I figured I'd find out if there were any more in the set. And while looking for the rest of that set, I found other sets, and then other sets, and other sets. And other sets. So, yeah, that escalated quickly.
What has been your favorite set to pursue or acquire?
Ooh, my favorite one. Well, I can tell you about the hardest one. I have been looking for one figure to complete this Super Mario Land finger puppet set.
Finger puppets.
It still gnaws at me. Here, I got one right here.
Finger puppet show. This will be a great. Oh wow.
Oh, cool! It's a full
Mario
body
Land.
finger puppet.
From Super Mario Land, one of my favorite Mario games.
And what's the one that you're trying to get?
The one I'm trying to get is the robot. I don't know if you guys remember the robot in the game where you had to stomp on him twice. He was in the space level, and oh my gosh, yeah, he's the one that's eluded me for all these years. But that's the one that I'm still trying to nab. But I've completed so many other sets, it just doesn't matter until I complete that one.
That's great.
So how many years have you been collecting then?
About 15 now.
Wow. And when did you decide this is something I kind of want to showcase to the world, and you started your website, which is it's videogamemm.com, right, for people who
Correct.
want to check it out?
Yeah, videogamemm.com. And I also have a YouTube channel, NightRam 56. And basically the site started as kind of a catalog of what I had, and I have never been caught up. And then people started, once I added a forum to it, people started coming around and asking me questions. And I kind of turned into an expert on all this stuff simply by looking at eBay for the last 15 years. And really I've kind of moved on from eBay because the American market I've kind of exhausted. Now I'm importing stuff from Japan quite often. So, but really what it comes down to is now I have a Guinness World Record.
That is so
wow.
cool.
And
That is.
It says the largest collection of video games memorabilia is 8,030 items owned by me. And that was that's a rough count. I know that there's more. It took 3 people from Guinness to come over with their little clickers, and they just went in the room. It took about an hour, and they did a visual count. Now, I don't know if you can see behind me, but if you tried to count one of these shelves visually, you'd never get the right number. I've tried to count my Zelda shelf about 3 times, and I always come up with a different number. So it's really hard to count visually. So if I had to piece it all out, I'd say about 10 grand. But
Wow.
one
That is
day
just-
I'll count it all.
And do you have it all on display, or is any of it boxed away, or is that something you're against as a collector? If you're gonna buy it, it's gonna be on display. I'm really curious about that.
I have to display it. I have some things that are like extras, and some things that don't display well, like bookmarks and things like that, patches, that I need wall space that I clearly don't have to post. But eventually, I hope to open some sort of art gallery where it's all out and all easily visible. Because when it's packed into a shelf like this, it's really hard to get the individual pieces and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But yeah, I have stuff that's not in the room.
That's so cool.
But I always try to get it in. There's always room. That's my motto. There's always room. Back it up.
It's really cool that you brought up Super Mario Land. A little side note was my brother, utilizing Craigslist, found a guy that used to run a video game store about 20 years ago, and it was closed down, and he threw a lot of the stuff in just a storage area and opened it up because he wanted to make some money selling it. So my brother was able to buy a box of unsold, unopened, still sealed. Sorry, I couldn't get over that. Super Mario Land copies of the game. They've
Nice.
never seen. They were in their shipping box. Never even came
Ooh,
out of that. So he was excited to buy a bunch of those. So
that's
hope.
tasty.
Yeah, it's really cool. Well, last but not least, before we get into what we're playing, what are some of your favorite Nintendo games?
Well, obviously Super Smash Brothers is going to top my list. It's kind of the ultimate love letter to Nintendo fans. Um, so, and a lot of the games that I hadn't played, I had to go back and play after I played the first Smash Brothers. I actually bought the first Smash Brothers on 64, the Japanese version, before it was even announced in the USA. And people would come over to my house and be like, "What is this game? Why is Mario hitting Yoshi? I don't understand." And man, that took off like wildfire in my neighborhood. I had people that I didn't even know coming to my house wanting to play this game because they heard that. And like some people were like, "Did you make this game? Like, how did you do this?" And it was pretty wild to have it before everybody else. But
Wow.
That's
um, Super Mario Brothers 3 definitely tops my list. That was a big deal back in the 80s, early 90s.
Oh gosh, it was.
Went to go see the Wizard movie
Yep.
and the giant ad for Nintendo, as they say, and man, was that an exciting experience. So when that game came out, that was like number one on my Christmas list that year.
yeah.
So that was great.
That's
Um,
also Fred Savage's highlight of his career being in The Wizard, not the Wonder Years or anything that's come
no, no,
after.
yeah, yeah, not Princess Bride or anything like that. It's definitely the Wizard. Right? It's so bad.
I love that quote. Actually, when I worked, Noah and I met through Nintendo, Joe, and we used to have avatars, and my avatar was Lucas with that
Nice.
quote. It's so
I remember
bad. He was an
Everybody
awesome.
remembers that. And if you saw that, that was the quote of the year.
that.
So on Smash Brothers, real quick, what's your favorite game out of the series?
Out of the series, boy, I know people want me to say Melee, but I'm gonna have to go with Brawl. I think it has the
Oh
better
no!
roster. Yeah,
I'm a melee guy.
you're a Melee guy.
Yeah,
The fighting is better in Melee, but I like the roster better in Brawl.
cool.
I'm
That makes
definitely a Young
sense.
Link fan, though. That was my main in Melee was Young Link, and I could kick some serious butt in Young Link. And then they changed him for Brawl, so I was a little. That was definitely a ding from Young Link to Toon Link in my book. But yeah,
That's really cool. Well, thanks so much for telling us about your background and showing us some of your collection. Hopefully, we'll see more of it in the future. And hopefully, you'll be able to announce that you have all the finger puppets from Super Mario Land. And we can maybe have some kind of show with Noah and I voicing some of the characters. Something like that. Noah's always about skits. I know
Oh
he
yeah, definitely am.
Well, let's get into what we're playing. Noah, I noticed that there's nothing here listed for you. So after the Super Mario 3D World Death March, have you kind of just taken some time to relax, take a breather?
Yeah, you could say I'm on hiatus. I'm really not on hiatus from game. I can never stop playing games, but since this is a Nintendo podcast, we're only talk about the Nintendo games that we're playing. And so it seems like I'm not playing video games, but I am. I'm just playing video games on other devices, and I don't want to be rude and go into detail about that on a Nintendo podcast, and so I just choose to plead the fifth.
And you're waiting for Mario Kart 8 to drop here in a couple weeks. I know that
Oh
you're
my gosh,
excited.
yes, I so can't wait for that.
Cool. Well, I've continued playing and finished Stick It to the Man, so I'm not going to touch on that anymore because you can look for the final review in NF Magazine, but I definitely recommend that game to Noah specifically because I know that I said I had good initial impressions, and I can say that those good impressions do carry over. It's a fun little adventure game, and it's really short. It's like a 4 or 5 hour experience, and I think that's just perfect. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and something that would be maybe a nice break, something different on Wii U for sure for you, Noah.
Great.
On top of that, I just started playing Lego The Hobbit. Once again, it's another review game I'll have in the next issue of NF Magazine, and I'm playing that with my wife, Brandon. So we've only played about the first level. It's very much like all the other Lego games, but it's just amazing to see how much detail and just having like the movie music in the game and having the voiceovers from the movie and integrated into Lego The Hobbit on Wii U is really cool. The only bummer so far is we've already hit a pretty crappy bug, like 25 minutes in, and I figured you go from like section to section in the first kind of storyline thing, and I was like, oh, it's got to save between these. I'll just restart the game so we can be together, because her character basically got locked behind a door, and she couldn't switch to any other characters, and it was like, well, I don't want to just keep playing by myself. That's not the point. I rebooted the system, and nope, nothing saved. It doesn't. You have to actually hit save points, which kind of made me scratch my head. That seems like a super unfriendly way, especially for a Lego game that I think would be geared more toward a younger crowd. You would think there'd be constant saving, checkpoint saving, but that is not the case. But it still was a fun time. I'm excited to explore more of the Shire and see what the encounter with Smog's like and all of that. So that'll be something fun to play here this week, and I'll be able to talk about more next week, hopefully. But Brett, it looks like you have a list of games. You've been outdoing both of us when it comes to Nintendo games. First off with NES Remix 2, excuse me, the sequel. And I know we had Don on a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like he wasn't as crazy about it as the first one, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
The first one was hard to play, in my opinion, just because of they didn't change the formula for, like, ice climbers, and if you're used to jumping with Mario and you go to ice climbers, you're going to get frustrated. The most frustrating one in this one is Kid Icarus, in my opinion, just because, pit. But I really enjoyed this sequel. I think it has a much better selection of games. Just in general, it's like Nintendo's second set of games. It was all the sequels that improved on everything. And then, but having played other Kirby games, it was hard to go backwards to Kirby's Adventure, where you had to press up to puff up and fly. Whereas later games, you just had to tap A, and I'm like, why am I not flying? Why am I getting hit? I'm like, oh, that's right, it's the NES version. So you kind of have to take yourself back. A lot of these games have improved their gameplay exponentially over the years, so they have to go back and try to do it all WarioWare. It was kind of interesting, but I did enjoy it. It went really quick for me, so I got my old bicycle NES skills back. But yeah, it was really interesting. I haven't rainbowed everything, but I've gotten 3 stars on everything, so yay for me.
You must have enjoyed it then to go through it. I mean, I guess it's been out a couple of weeks, but still to 3-star everything. Did you actually rainbow everything on the first NES remix?
No, I'm not a big go after the trophies, achievements, accomplishments kind of guy. I'm not really that big a deal on because who am I going to show my 5-year-old? Ooh, hey, I've got rainbows. Like, okay. Good job, Dad. Yeah, so I've got no one really to brag about, but nonetheless, I don't want to spend hours on trying to get rainbow stars on like Punch Out or something like that. So most of the time, I got 3 stars right away. So wasn't really a problem.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, the one that gave me the biggest problem, and you'll laugh at this, is Glass Joe in Punch Out. The very first character, and then they make him strong or something, and you have to beat him really fast, and I couldn't figure out how to do that for a while. Then the Miiverse posts actually have little videos you can play their score once they post. So then I was watching those, and I did. It was really weird because I did the same thing that these Miiverse posts did, and it never happened for me until like randomly fell over and stayed down. So I was like, I'm not really sure why that worked for me that time, but moving on.
I didn't know that did that. So you could actually attach videos on the Miiverse when you beat it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's automatic in the game. So if you have a high score and you post something like a stamp or a like a little message or something, it'll have a little video and a time with your Miiverse post. So if you click that little play button, it'll play what that person posted about.
Cool.
So it's kind of automatic. I never really had to attach anything, but.
Oh, that's really cool. So would you ultimately say you like the sequel more than the first one then?
I did, yeah. And since I have both, you can access the championship mode, which is actually really cool. I was one of the contestants in the Power Fest 1990, baby. And I remember playing. I remember how they had it set up with the Rad Racer and the Tetris at the end, and you had to collect 50 coins. And it's set up like that, but it ends with Dr. Mario. So that was really cool, just to kind of have Nintendo go way back to its roots and have this championship mode. And then I don't know if you guys have tried Luigi, Super Luigi Brothers. That is a mind trip, man.
Going from right to left.
Going from right to left. Oh, that is because playing Super Mario Brothers 1 so often, I remember all the stages and how they're built. And then when you mirror it, it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what's coming up next. I thought the Starman was in this block. Right? Stuff like that. So that was a mind trip. That was great.
That's really cool. Well, the other game that you're playing is one of Noah and I's favorites, and from last year, we both were pleasantly surprised how well it came together, and that's Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon on the 3DS.
Yes, that I started playing and dropped off a little bit after I got to the second mansion because, I don't know, something distracted me. And I haven't returned to it because I couldn't find it. One of my sons lost the game.
Oh.
I just recently found it.
Grounded for life.
We had a chat about Daddy's games, and now I think we're good, so I can start that back up again. But I love the first one, so I can't wait to jump back into that one.
Oh, that's exciting! It's really, really good. I was always a fan of the first one. I never really understood the hate it got. I mean, it's a very short experience, and I think it was basically because people. It's expectations.
Different. Yeah.
They wanted a Mario platformer with the launch of the GameCube. They got Luigi's Mansion, and something retroactively you look back and it's like that's a really cool experience. But next level games, I feel like just knocked it out of the park.
Definitely.
And not to bring up E3 too much, but that game came out at this point 14, 15 months ago. So I'll be curious to see if we get to see their next Nintendo project here at E3 next month. Because that would
Always
be
excited to see what they have.
Yeah, really excited to see. That'd be a great surprise, whether it's 3DS or Wii U. And then, Brett, the final games that you're playing some older games. You've got WarioWare and Super Mario Brothers 3, which you've already said is your favorite game. So just going back to play for fun, or?
I'm actually doing the reviews for the Virtual Console for NF. So.
Awesome. So we can look to hear more about that in the magazine. And that's in addition, we haven't brought it up, you actually do the Collector's Corner, right? Yeah. For NF Magazine?
Yeah.
That's
and
really...
occasionally I'll do a review. Occasionally they throw me a bone. So.
Well, could you just give us a tease of what we can expect in the Collector's Corner for next issue?
Some Mario Kart 8 stuff that's coming out soon is, boy, it's really exciting. They've got loop tracks coming out. They've got pullback racers, and I know that there's been a lot of pullback racers, but these ones are set to do wheelies and 360s. There's also something from Jakks Pacific that I can't wait to see a demo of or something. They said that these racers can go anti-grav, meaning that they can climb walls. I'd love to see how they pull that off, or if it's possible, or if it's just like you can pretend to drive the wall. But yeah, if that really happens, then we're seeing an RC revolution in our hands through Mario Kart. But yeah, there's a lot of Mario Kart 8 goodies in there, and there's a first 4 figure statue, if you guys know anything about those.
Those are fancy, as I recall.
Oh, yes. Fancy.
Oh my gosh, you have that Ganon?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm really jealous.
I just have the head. Just that. No, I'm just
kidding. You disassembled him.
Now that I have the head.
Apart.
I've got them all. So I just can't, I can't miss a Zelda statue. So there's been 18 of them now.
Wow.
Number 18 is Zelda. Now, I'm not sure if I had the Zelda license if I'd wait for number 18 to be the Zelda statue, but yeah. Princess Zelda from Twilight Princess is
and that's a beautiful statue.
This year, so.
Wow.
Yeah, she looks gorgeous.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, with that, we're going to get into one of our main discussion topics for this episode of the NF Show, and it's unfortunately some pretty bad Nintendo financial news. But before that, we have a code break. Noah, could
What?
you give away the code for BitBoy Arcade 3DS? So get your 3DSs ready, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen.
I hope they're out. I hope they're powered on because these numbers and letters are coming at you right now for BitBoy
Hey,
Arcade 3DS. The code is A04J8U4R 2FXF100L. One more time in case I mispronounced something or it sounded like I said one something else entirely. Nice. I like these props that are coming out in this game. A04J8U4R2FXF100L. That's it. First one to get it gets it. Please let us know what you think about the game, though. Either leave us a message over in the comments or send in an email. We'll give you all that information later. But that's your code break. Now back to you, Evan.
Thank you so much, Noah. Let's all put on our serious faces and maybe get our pens out and calculators because Nintendo released their fiscal year details just this past week, and they also gave us an idea of what to expect in this coming fiscal year. So if you're unfamiliar, Nintendo's fiscal year runs from April 1st to March 31st of the following year. So the fiscal year we're in right now started April 1st and it will run through March 31st, 2015. But for the last fiscal year, Nintendo had an annual operating loss of $457 million, which you can tell by the million that is not good. And it was also the third year in a row that Nintendo's underperformed. The Wii U is obviously the console that's really putting the biggest dent into their profits, with it only selling 2.7 million units last year. Severely underperforming. Nintendo actually expected originally to sell 9 million units. And just to kind of put that 2.7 million number in context, in December 2009, the Wii actually sold 3.8 million units in North America alone in 1 month. So that just kind of compare and contrast the two consoles. For the next year, Nintendo's hoping to sell 3.6 million Wii U's, so it's really not looking for too much of an uptick. It's still a pretty low number, and it kind of makes me expect not to see too many surprises this year at E3 and the next year with such a low initial forecast. But I'm curious, Brett, what did you think about the numbers? Or do you really follow their financial information? As a Wii U owner, are you a little nervous about its future?
Oh no! That's what I think. Yeah, that's not good to hear. We all knew that the Wii U was floundering, but to have that big of a loss is that's pretty rough. I hope that Mario Kart 8 and Smash Brothers can turn it around, but I guess it remains to be seen.
Um, no, it's something that we've talked about for weeks on end. What did you think? I mean, we kind of were expecting the worst. Was it worse, though, than you thought, or was about in line with everything?
I think the sales of Wii U were probably in line with what I expected. I wasn't entirely ready for Nintendo to say that next year it should be only a little bit more than what was sold in the last year. It's kind of like, wow. I think that actually says a lot. Now, if they had predicted once again, oh, we're going to sell 10 million in the next year, I would have found that ridiculous. But to see something much more conservative and modest in terms of sales is also, I mean, I think it really sends home the situation that Nintendo's in and kind of what they feel about Wii U, even with their two biggest hitters coming out here in the next year.
For me, it just spelled. We've talked about. I think back in months ago at the start of the year, possibly on the show and just privately, Noah and I talking, it was wondering, we've heard about relaunches, rebootings from Nintendo with the Wii U, and this number just spells to me we're not going to see. I mean, they could maybe try to put that out in the press and see if they can spin it as a relaunch, but we're not going to see a big difference, I think, in price with the system. It may go a little lower, but don't expect a drastic price cut. And I just think, in general, their strategy, to me, it seems like they're just going to ride out things. They don't expect the system to become a big hit anytime soon. They're hoping just to keep things moving, and probably their R&D's working on what their next step is. So the overall numbers for the Wii U, just another comparison. I'm not trying to put too much doom and gloom out there, but just to kind of bring home how bad things are for the Wii U. Lifetime to date, now it's 6.17 million units sold. The PlayStation 4, for instance, has already sold 7 million, and it came out a year later. The Xbox One has already shipped 5 million, so it will surpass the lifetime to date of the Wii U probably in the next few months, and that's a console that's not even out in Japan and some other countries. So right now, with Nintendo's forecast, the Wii U is looking to be the lowest selling console that they've ever released, not including the Virtual Console. So it'll be really curious to see at E3, I feel like, how much in the future games they give us, because I think that can be a real telltale of how much longer they plan to support this. If we really don't hear about too many games outside of 2014, and they're not making promises like they have in the past couple of years with the Wii U, with like the Bayonetta 2s, the Shin Megami Tensei, Crossfire Emblem, games like that for the foreseeable future, I think it could point and hint at the Wii U maybe not being its main console past the end of 2015.
Yeah, and after all, they are going to be trying a mysterious, different type of console launch in China with a different set of games that's specifically targeted at providing a quality offering to emerging markets, is how it was described. Rather than just releasing Wii U out there or releasing 3DS or something else like that, there's going to be something different. And I'm really intrigued to see if that's going to be a bellwether or an indicator of where Nintendo would like to go with the rest of the world, or is it going to be really just a one-off?
Definitely.
Well, let's not forget the other really important part of that news is that Nintendo's focusing on merchandising, which makes me happy. Yeah, they've got plenty of characters to go all out with, and we've seen Jack Specific go crazy with the life-size Mario Kart and stuff like that, where Nintendo has cash on the side. There also, I saw a Fox McCloud figure, a Captain Falcon figure. Those are two figures that have never been released before. In any instance, we've had R-Wings and we've had other things, but a Fox McCloud and nothing Captain Falcon. We've had a Blue Falcon little ship, but nothing in the way of figures. So that's going to be exciting to see if Jack Specific will build like a Smash Brothers figure line.
That's what it seems to suggest to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised either at the figurines. One of the first games it works with is Smash Brothers. It may not be character unlocks, but it just makes sense if they're gonna have these figurines that work with multiple games. Smash Brothers seems like the perfect one to start that out with. One of your biggest hitters and those characters, and that's really cool. A Fox McCloud statue sounds pretty awesome, and it's crazy that there hasn't been anything like that yet.
Yeah, I own a prototype of something that was going to be released in the Nintendo 64 era. But it was never mass marketed, never mass created. So I have the one that was created.
Wow. And don't you think that it's telling that these NFC figurines work with both Wii U and 3DS, and what's going to be both on Wii U and 3DS, but Smash Brothers?
Yeah.
I don't know.
To just add characters in, that'd be sweet.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that I hope, just speaking of Fox McCloud, when you have this Smash Brothers game releasing, and I think it opens a lot of younger fans' eyes to other franchises within Nintendo. I mean, for America, our first look at Fire Emblem came with Roy and Marth in Super Smash Brothers Melee. Yeah. It's the perfect time to have a complementary game from an F-Zero, from a Star Fox when they're playing with these characters to kind of, maybe they don't have to release alongside, but around that time frame, this holiday season or right after, I feel like would be a smart move for Nintendo to reinvigorate those franchises. Nintendo also released information about the 3DS. It is better. A lot of people point to the 3DS as Nintendo doesn't need to worry. The 3DS is doing well. Well, the 3DS is actually didn't meet the forecast for Nintendo either, and it actually had a decline year over year, and Iwata has pointed to this as being kind of the year that they were going to really make a lot of money off the 3DS. I mean, I think it is making money, but not anywhere near they wanted it, and it's weird for a console in its third year to actually decline year over year. So it sold roughly 12 million units, and that's a decline from about 14 million the previous fiscal year. It does bring the lifetime to date sales up to 43 million, and then looking into the future, Nintendo's hoping to sell 12 million, so kind of stagnant with the past year. So I'm curious to know, are you surprised that they're staying at the same number? Does that kind of say to you that there is going to be another hardware iteration of the 3DS? What were your thoughts just looking at those numbers?
I was actually really surprised by the decline here because this was a huge year software speaking for Nintendo. You have a brand new Pokemon game, the first 3D Pokemon games. You have Animal Crossing. You had, I think, was Fire Emblem within this fiscal year? I'm not sure. It may not have been. Luigi's
No, I
Mansion.
just missed it.
Was Luigi's Mansion within it?
Yes. Yeah, part of it was.
And then we had Mario and Luigi. We had Professor Layton. There was a lot of really big titles, really well-reviewed titles, and especially Animal Crossing and Pokemon were in there. And then you had the release of 2DS, which is kind of a budget take on the 3DS. Doesn't have the 3D capabilities, but it's more affordable. There's no reason why a forecast shouldn't have been able to be met. And if Nintendo is expecting to sell the exact same number of units next year, and I'm not exactly sure what the big titles are aside from Pokemon, it would suggest that maybe they're expecting to goose sales to prevent more of a decline with some kind of revision. And I know that, Evan, you're the biggest proponent of saying that, of course, there's going to be another revision just because there always has been one for the last 6 years. I personally don't know what that revision could be, if it's worthwhile. I have a feeling it's going to be something as predictable as 2DS XL, because I remember when the 2DS first came out, I'm like, why is it using the small screens? I'm so used to my 3DS XL screens. Why are they doing tiny ones here? So I wouldn't be surprised if it's something really predictable or lame like that, and I also don't think we're going to hear about that at E3. It's probably going to be several months afterwards.
And Brett, did you have any thoughts on the 3DS sales?
I was surprised as well. Moving forward, the only thing that I could see coming from like a new 3DS version would be if the control scheme for Smash Brothers was a little odd, and maybe like if they have the second circle pad attachment, if that does something, then they might just release a 3DS with the two analogs. But other than that, because that's what everyone wants, is the two analog sticks built in. But apart from that, I don't really know what more they could do, because it was such a huge year. As Noah suggested, it was just a huge year for games. So I mean, Kirby and Yoshi and just about everybody got a new game.
And Bravely Default too, yeah.
And Donkey Kong and all those guys. So.
Zelda.
Yeah, I'm someone.
How can I forget that? Jeez.
Oh yeah, Zelda. That was a fantastic game.
Yes.
It was a crazy year. They obviously are hoping Tamagotchi Life does well in the West. They've got Super Smash Brothers, and they have the Pokemon games. I'm sure we'll hear about a couple more titles, especially if the figurines work with 3DS. Those may come out within the next fiscal year. But I think if there isn't a new iteration, and I think there will be, since there has been every year since 2009, I will keep going with that. The only other thing to keep sales the same they were this past year would be the ability to make big price cuts. Maybe the 2DS can go down to the $79 price mark or become $99 permanently. I think if they can get into that really low ball game, possibly with a game packaged with it, the 2DS may take off. But I feel like, for me, my expectations, and definitely for Nintendo, they thought the 2DS was going to be more of a spark, and it really wasn't, which is really surprising for them.
Maybe
as
it was
a company.
more confusing to consumers. I know I had a lot of discussions about whether the normal consumer walking into a Walmart or a Best Buy would know the difference between a 2DS and a 3DS, and whether children telling their parents would be like, well, I want the 3DS because it's a bigger number than the 2DS. Maybe they don't know what the back specs are. So
Yeah.
it just came down to too many versions of the 3DS out there.
Yeah, especially when one's named something entirely different. Nintendo's definitely had some messaging and marketing problems as well. It'll be curious to see how they address those moving forward, and I think E3 will be the first big instance. But with that, let's get into your feedback, see what your thoughts are. Remember, you can email us at show@nfmagazine.com, or you can leave a comment over on our YouTube page. And if you're watching this live right now, right below us, please type in your thoughts, and we'll get to them next week. But Noah, take us away.
All right, feedback time. First, we'll go through the emails. First up from Travis R. Hey, guys, I really enjoyed your last podcast. I had to laugh at the tips you gave to the guy who wrote it and asking how he could talk his mom into letting him stay home from school for E3. Evan was so deceptive, and Noah was just straightforward and truthful. Well, mention that. Remember that. That's when you listen to the show. He continues, I'm pumped for E3. I'm disappointed that Nintendo is not doing a live conference, but I expected them to avoid it again this year. I just want great content. If we see good stuff, it doesn't matter if it's live or recorded. As the financial results came out today, I couldn't help thinking Nintendo has their back against the wall. This leads me to think we could see some very welcome surprises at E3. I've heard it said time and again that Nintendo does some crazy awesome things when their back is against the wall, and I can't think of a time when the experts were prophesying their demise as loudly as they've been in their latest rants. Do you think Nintendo will make our eyes melt with joy? I try not to get too overhyped for E3 because it makes it hard for me to be satisfied, but I would think everyone in that company knows they need to blow it out of the water this year. And on a possibly related note, have you heard about the $100 million tech acquisition that Nintendo made in Q4 2013? Do you think we'll see any news related to that at E3?
I can jump in here. If I would have very cautiously optimistic expectations for Nintendo's E3, I think they've continue to struggle with HD development. I think most of the surprises are going to be related to the NFC figurines and that initiative. I think the most surprising thing we could possibly see is maybe like a Metroid game for the 3DS, which would be really cool. Don't get me wrong, but I think we'll see Zelda for Wii U, but don't expect that to come out in the next year. I think that would be a late 2015 title, and hopefully I'm surprised by that, but I would say that things are going to kind of continue on their pace from the past couple of years with stuff. And the $100 million tech acquisition, I am guessing that's related to their quality of life platform, and we won't hear about that at E3, but we'll hear whenever that device is revealed in the next year.
Brett, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Just great insight, Travis. That was good stuff. I really hope to find something special in next E3, but like Evan said, I really think that they'll play it safe and maybe show off that Zelda. That'd be great. That's a surprise in itself. Any E3 with a Zelda is a good E3.
I'm going to be on the edges, and I may be totally wrong, but I would be surprised if there were no Zelda at this E3. And that Zelda gets shelved until the next console. I know that would be a lot of people disagree with that or be upset about that, but given where Nintendo's at, do they want to put their money and investment into putting a Zelda on a system that's not going to sell hardly any units just to be nice to the fans and the people who have bought the system, or do they want to say, hey, let's actually do what we did with Wii at least and maybe make it a launch title for the next system and maybe have a port on the older system? I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. Next email from Hiawatha. Hiawatha said, I have been waiting for Wii Party U to become available digitally before purchasing it. I am happy that I will finally be able to own this game. I already ordered the horizontal stand from eBay, and I think what he's referring to is the deal where if you buy Mario Kart 8 and you register on Club Nintendo, you can get Wii Party U among other games for free. One game for free. He continues, however, I am still waiting for Nintendo Land to return to the eShop. Since Nintendo Land physically came with my system, I didn't purchase it digitally at the time. I regret that now, as my entire library of games, sans Call of Duty, is digital. Just knowing that I could have owned Nintendo Land digitally if I had purchased it while I had the chance makes the entire eShop questionably scary. Nintendo should never have taken Nintendo Land off the eShop. It really gives me an uneasy feeling that I cannot shake.
It was taken off 2 months ago. I remember seeing it, and for me personally, I was just like, I bet Nintendo brings it back as some kind of like free to play experience or something. I thought maybe they were retooling it for the digital edition, but that hasn't happened. So if we don't hear anything about maybe at E3 about the figures working with Nintendo Land, or if you buy one of those, you get the experience that comes with that character in Nintendo Land for free. It comes as a download or something. I have no idea why they had removed it. But that's my wild theory that I'll throw out there, that they're retooling it for a different structure than just a standalone 60, 50, $40 game.
Brett?
Anytime I have no idea what Nintendo's doing, I'm excited because they always have something up their sleeve, don't they?
That is true.
It's fun to try to decipher the mystery, but I just, I'm not very good at that. I'm not, everyone's pretty surprised by what Nintendo has to offer. So it is a little scary to think, but, I think those are great ideas, Evan. Maybe they'll pull that off. That'd be great.
Yeah, I agree. Getting into the comments for last week's episode from Dave Hortis, Dave R. Hodis, he very concisely said, Smash Invitational is greater than live press conference, and that could prove to be very true. I feel that we're going to see some big flashy things from Microsoft and Sony, which may or may not be appealing to the masses or you personally, but I definitely cannot wait to check out the Smash Invitational. I'm just as excited about that as to see what type of surprises there are, because Nintendo has a lot of opportunity to make it a big flashy set piece of E3 that becomes an annual tradition, or it could be something kind of modest and tame. It's like, well, that was cool, they tried, but really they should leave the live pro gaming to the pros that do it. We'll see what they do. From Eric R., I don't quite think that the Sony press conference last year turned the tide for Sony's favor. This is a response to something Evan said. I think what has helped Sony is they released a console that was $100 cheaper than its competitor and offered the best versions of games coming out for both platforms because of the hardware power. The thing I think we need to think about is how many examples of digital-only streams are there versus live conferences? And really, how much do these announcement conferences influence future sales? For those who are not actively looking for news in the industry, we don't have studies or actual data that can prove definitely if one method works and one doesn't. And I don't think comparing sales of the two consoles this year is a good indicator because it ignores the multitude of other reasons why the consoles sold the way that they did. I can see the pros and cons for both options, yet I'm not convinced that either is better than the other. That is, a live show versus a pre-recorded show. I think the content drives if one appears better than the other, and if Nintendo goes balls to the walls crazy with excellent announcements, yeah, I get to say that phrase, I think you'll see a lot more positive opinions throughout the internet of the lack of a live conference, but we'll see. I think there's not enough data nor examples of this approach to write it off or declare live conferences the better way to go. In other news, Mario Kart 8 looks excellent. Evan, your response?
I think one thing you're missing that we talked about in kind of ad nauseum last week was messaging and rhetoric. It's not just them having a live conference, it's the message they're sending. And like Brett brought up, Nintendo's messaging has been pretty muddied just throughout the past year with people, is a Wii U an upgrade of the Wii, just stuff like that. And they haven't had this strong core message that I think Sony brought home last year with their live conference. First off, they did the kind of DRM rights thing. They had a great 1.5-minute video with two of their executives to show that it's just like any other console. And then they basically were saying, our console is for games. I get that the price point makes a difference, but if you talk to people on the streets, you're going to hear a lot of the narrative that's had on gaming websites and on forums about games will look better on PlayStation 4. PlayStation 4 is about games. The Kinect will spy on you and stuff. And a lot of that starts at E3 and spreads out. You have to remember that the biggest media presence for the video game industry is at E3. You have your Time magazines, your Forbes, your New York Times, all covering them, and they're covering the live conferences. It's harder to get those journalists to cover a digital-only event that's really catering toward the Nintendo faithful already. So I strongly disagree with what you have to say, but I agree there's no data to say one way or the other how it affects sales and everything like that.
I thought it was brilliant that Nintendo brought E3 to Best Buy last year. I thought that was an awesome
Mhm.
move because for years and years and years I was unable to go to E3, and now I have the I'm totally blessed in the fact that I get to go. But back when I couldn't go, I was always just gnawing, chomping at the bit, waiting to see what they were going to say. And I think removing the ethereal quality of the live press conference is something that has benefited Nintendo personally, because we don't have things that go on stage that are somewhat unscripted, or something, some kind of tech doesn't work or something like that. They have a completely controlled experience, which is really what Nintendo needs right now. They need to focus on, that they can't afford a giant enemy crab, and they can't afford, some kind of crazy line that offends people or something that came out of some of the other press conferences last year. I think it's a smart move to bring it to people that can't go to California, and I think it's while they might lose that sense of crowd, um, the power of the crowd or whatever at a live press conference, largely when you look at it online, which most of us are viewing it online, you miss that anyway. So unless you're there at the event, you don't really get to see the energy, like feel the energy of the press conference. Now I was at Sony's last year, and they knocked it out of the park. I think the only thing missing was Jack Tretton dropping the mic, because
Yeah.
that was sick. It was an amazing press conference because they had built everything. They were in a position to just stomp on Microsoft at that point. But um, it was it was interesting the way that Nintendo just kind of slipped in there, and they did have a press event. It was a closed doors thing before E3 started, and I was actually a part of that as well. And they kind of did their little press conference bit, and they had guys with cat suits and stuff like that,
Yeah.
or with cat ears, and they did that bit where it was kind of going to be, and I was glad at that moment. Like it was funny for us, but to have that on the internet, I'm sure it would have been gift, and I'm sure it would have been, all over the place, lambasted essentially. So I like their approach with the digital uh, instead of the live.
Yeah, I guess my last thought, I know we need to move on, is just I would argue that Nintendo had the best games last year, and that didn't change the messaging or ultimately the sales. So I don't know how that could possibly be different this year.
Hmm.
Our next comment is from Pour Toujours 1808, who wrote, Nintendo definitely has me concerned with its decision to have this digital event instead of a press conference, mostly because it hasn't yet given any details on what the digital event will be like. I acknowledge that the event could be nothing more than a simple direct with a fancier name, but I'm willing to be optimistic and assume that Nintendo has something up its sleeve. If the event is handled well enough, it could be an okay substitute for a live press conference. Nintendo likes to do things differently, for better or for worse, and it seems like this digital event is just another example of that. We shall
Well
see.
put. Yeah, well put.
Next up from Nintendo Dude GCN. Congrats on getting into the final area of Super Mario 3D World, Noah. I'll accept you throwing in the towel because it sounds like you at least gave the final stages a solid effort. Well, I think I'm going to try it one more time to make it truly a solid effort, but I appreciate the acquiescence. Nintendo Dude GCN continues. As for Nintendo's E3 plans, I have to admit that I'm pretty disappointed. I was really hoping for a grand press conference with big surprises left and right. I am excited for E3, but my expectations are pretty low for the digital event. I've been playing Kirby Triple Deluxe over the weekend, and it has been really fun. The gameplay is very similar to Return to Dreamland on Wii, but even more polished. The level design is great, and I found that each level is unique in its own way. Thank you, Nintendo Dude GCN, for sharing that. We always love to hear gameplay impressions from folks in the audience. He also continued, my favorite thing about the game would have to be the Hypernova segments. Each one is very intuitive and unique, and they're very well placed and spread out so that they don't feel gimmicky. Even the gyroscope segments of the game feel natural, and that's not something most 3DS games can get away with. The only caveat I have is that I've been breezing through the game, and it feels pretty short. Overall, I'd recommend Triple Deluxe if you're looking for an enjoyable, relaxing 3DS game, especially if it's something you don't want to put many hours into. This may just be the compliment Noah needs to ease his frustration after 3D World. And I definitely am happy to hear that because I am just starting to get into Kirby after playing the first games I played were the more experimental ones that were on DS and 3DS. I especially loved Mass Attack. It was fantastic, and I liked Epic Yarn on Wii. So this might be kind of a cool bridge game. I never got Return to Dreamland, so we'll see if that happens. Last comment from Benjamin A. He wrote in, I have another question for you guys. What would you like to see in the E3 Nintendo Digital event? While you think about it, I will share my thoughts. We all know there will be games, but I would like Nintendo to release its official smartphone app after the broadcast in true Nintendo fashion. We've been promised a Miiverse app for a while to actually enjoy the service. Hopefully the official Nintendo app includes eShop, Miiverse, and Club Nintendo. Brett, let's hear from you first.
Well, that would be brilliant. First, Noah, if you want to beat Super Mario 3D World, come on over and I'll help you out.
Oh, right. Yeah, something
I'm
so cool when I saw that certificate. I found out that Brett lives in the same city as I do.
Yes, you're going to get a tour, and then my 4-year-old and my 5-year-old can help you through the game. With Kirby, I'm actually going to get Kirby. When I bought Mario Kart, I pre-ordered Mario Kart 8 through Dell.com, and that gives you a $25 gift card to spend on whatever at Dell, and they actually have Kirby as well. So I'm going to get Mario Kart 8, I'm going to get Kirby, and then I'm going to get a free game from Nintendo Download. So
that is really smart.
So that's a good tip out there.
Good to know.
You kids. A smartphone app would be brilliant, wouldn't it? That'd just be the final nail right there. That'd be just great to bring it all together. They've been going digital for a while. They have this Miiverse thing. To be able to access that and add stuff to it would be great. Because you can go on a browser right now and look through Miiverse, but what fun is that if you can't participate? So it would be nice. And then Club Nintendo, I'm on there all the time, waiting to find out what their next little statue is. So that'd be great. And then for the E3 digital event, I just want to be wowed, I guess. I really hope that something great happens. But yeah, I have to reserve myself. I mean, I'm always so excited entering a room or entering an area where Nintendo's showing stuff, but I just have to put it in my pocket, I guess.
Yeah. Evan?
The smartphone app is way overdue. I think it's great that you brought it up, Benjamin. It would be great if they were like, you know what, this is a digital event. Now you can access the eShop digitally. Finally, you don't have to be on the Wii U or 3DS. They should drop that. That'd be perfect. And kind of go along with messaging that, you know what, we're making everything more consumer friendly. You can buy games that way. They'll boot up, stuff like that. In regard to what I'd like to see at E3 Nintendo's digital event, I feel like the past couple of years it's just been all Mario. It's been a lot of Pokemon and even Zelda extent. I'm very excited to see Zelda, and I hope it's something we've never seen before. Almost like a Wind Waker, where it's like, what? That's Zelda? Like, kind of like, ugh, I don't know about that. But I would either like to see, and this is something I think people talk about every year, like to see a new IP, maybe from Retro if they do have a second team or Next Level Games, or I'd like to see an old franchise brought back in a new way, because I feel like we've been getting very similar experiences over the past couple of years with Nintendo. There have been some great sequels, but they've been sequels. We haven't had that game that just wows you with how different it is or how weird it is. I mean, I feel like Nintendo Land basically was the last one that's been really Nintendo doing something different with old stuff. And on a side note, I would really like to see cool things like Rusty's Real Deal Baseball and Steel Divers Sub Wars, games like that announced for both 3DS and Wii U, because those are some new IPs and new ideas, and I've really enjoyed them over the past few months.
Yeah, the new IPs have been really reserved to eShop downloads and stuff like that. That's kind of like their experimentation space, and that's been really exciting that they've taken that space and turned it into something like Dylan's Rolling Western and stuff like that. Those games that we wouldn't see a full console release for, but they're still making new stuff, which is great. It's not all Mario and Zelda and Pokemon, so it's good.
Yeah. I'll just chime in real quickly. Real quickly, that's real bad grammar there. Sorry, I feel awful about that. I really want to see games announced and trailers for games that we don't already know about. I have this bad feeling that we're going to see trailers and gameplay videos of every single game we've already heard about for Wii U and nothing really new. And the area for potential surprises is going to be strictly limited to 3DS and this NFC game. Now, that could be potentially offset by the NFC games or game being really cool and being the first figurine-based game where I'm like, oh my gosh, I actually want to get the game. I don't just want to get the little toys. I'm kind of skeptical about that because the model's already out there, and I would love to see Nintendo follow through. And like, we don't copy ideas; we always have to do things our own way, and therefore our NFC game's going to be really cool and really fun for all ages. I don't know, but I really, really would like to see something different that I haven't heard predicted. I'm not that excited about seeing a Zelda game because everybody's expecting it. I want to see something unexpected. And with that, that is an end for the feedback. We are running a little bit late, so I apologize for being a little fast talker here, but I'm going to hand it back to Evan to wrap up.
Thank you so much, Noah, and thank you for listening or watching to this episode of the NF Show. Please don't forget you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, especially if you're watching right now, so you can get all of our videos, and I'm sure there'll be videos that are different from the NF Show in the future. There's already been one in the past. And there's also an NF Show playlist, so if you want to listen to what is now probably 18 hours of Noah and I and awesome guests like Brett talking, you can just click that and go through all of the episodes. We're also on iTunes, thanks to Noah, who puts together the audio versions and posts the blog post for NF Show over on nfmagazine.com, where you can find our show as well as more information about the magazine itself. But review us on iTunes, give us your honest thoughts, please let us know what you think. Finally, if you can't get enough of us each Monday night or whenever you listen to us via podcast form, you can follow us on Twitter. Noah is at This Is Noah. I am at Evan Campbell. You can also follow the Nintendo Force at Nintendo Force. And then our special co-host for this week, Brett, is at NightRamVGMM. Or you can also go to his awesome Memorabilia Museum website. That is videogamemm.com. Brett, thank you so much for joining us here on episode 17.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. You can also go to my YouTube channel, which is NightRam56. Just swap right over.
Sweet. Definitely check those out.
Shameless plug.
Definitely. Oh, that's awesome. And Noah, I guess I can thank you for being here again.
I guess I can give you a mutual thank you.
It is always
me here.
It is always a pleasure to have Noah here and all of us here. It has been another great episode. I believe our longest episode. This has been episode 17 of the NF Show. Thanks for joining.